It's sounding more and more likely that a Jack Eichel trade is getting close to happening, and Vegas continues to be the front-running team that's likely going to make the acquisition. We also have some news on more progress to female referees at the lower levels, and news on the NHL waiver wire. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here tonight. A couple quick news updates, and then we're going to talk about a potential deal that seems to be getting close on the Eichel to Vegas front. Now, first up on the waiver wire, the Toronto Maple Leafs have placed forward Michael Amadio on waivers for the purpose of being assigned to the minors. So obviously that'll give them a little bit of flexibility. He's been a kind of player for them so far that's been mostly an extra forward, played a little bit early on when they were dealing with a few injuries. So we'll see what happens. He is a potential player that could get claimed. I would think it's probably not extremely likely, but you just never know. We'll find out tomorrow afternoon once the waiver wire time frame is up at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And also, too, we have another female referee making her debut in the AHL today. So obviously more progress for getting more diversity, more women involved at the higher levels, which is great to see. Elizabeth Mantha, yes, as the sister of Anthony Mantha of the Washington Capitals, is now officially making her AHL referee debut. So that's certainly great to see. Obviously, we're trying to get to a situation here where there's more females involved at the higher levels. Hopefully we get that to the NHL sooner than later as well, but obviously getting more involved at those levels will certainly help along with that progress. So, as I mentioned, we have potential news here on an Eichel deal that's getting close. I've seen it reported from a variety of sources. We're talking about Elliotte Friedman, who first mentioned things on the Jeff Merrick show early this afternoon. And we also have word from John Hoven, who covers a lot of the West Coast hockey teams quite closely. And, of course, with our Twitter source, NHL Rumours Daily, also reporting on this as well. So there's enough people with connections saying that the deal is getting close. I know the words by Friedman said that real work was getting done, progress was being made, and that it felt like things were getting close. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that today's Jack Eichel's birthday as well, so it'd be interesting if it went down before the actual day was up. We had reported a few days ago that there was word that Vegas had become the new front runners on this potential trade that seems like we've been waiting for forever and talking about tons. It's been a dominant headline in the hockey world for quite a long time, ever since we got word that Eichel officially had asked for a trade. So this certainly leads us to draw a few conclusions I think are safe to assume. One, for Eichel, that the Vegas Golden Knights would be the team, or one of the teams that would be okay with him having the surgery that he wants, the disc replacement surgery. Obviously, if that trade can get done, whether it be today or in the next couple of days, like in the very, very near future, that gives him a chance to actually have a shot at being on the U.S. Olympic team. If you take a look at the estimated recovery for that procedure from what his doctors have been advising, it looks like, it's 2 to 3 months, right? So that gets him in a situation, if he could get that surgery pronto, early November, for example, that gets him back in action in January. So, maybe February at the latest, like it could happen. Now, of course, one concern for an acquiring team might be, do you want to give up a bunch of assets, bring in a top player like Eichel, this very expensive contract, and then maybe have him play his first hockey games as an Olympian? I mean, in some aspects, there's a lot of good to it, but it is obviously risky after not playing for so long because of the neck injury and the herniated disc. It's a situation where they may not be real crazy about that, but I guess time will tell. Hopefully, it would be nice if he could get a few games in, even if it's not a lot, before the Olympic break to see. Now, of course, for the Vegas Golden Knights to make the acquisition, they would have to have the required cap space to get him onto their roster before he goes on to long-term injury reserve. So certainly, as we've talked about before, the Sabres had made it known through other reports that we talked about in the past that they were certainly willing to take on at least one NHL contract to kind of even out the money a little bit, to make it a little bit more doable for teams to complete a trade. We've heard rumblings that they were not real keen at all on retaining salary, because obviously that ties up money on their end for a number of years until the end of that contract. So that may or may not be the case. Of course, there's always a possibility as well that Vegas could even have another team involved as a third team, like a third-party broker. We're making the acquisition and retaining a little bit of that salary, a couple $1 million, in order for some assets to go that way. So there could even be a third team involved as well to reduce the cap hit for Vegas. But from what we're hearing, it sounds like there's pretty likely that for Vegas to be considered that close and that serious, that they must have put Peyton Krebs on the table here in a deal. I know they seem to be reluctant in the past to do that, but based on where things are at right now, many are assuming here that he quite likely is part of the package if they get the deal done. Now, of course, I know, like, for example, NHL Rumours Daily said he'd be quite surprised if he wasn't. He'd be the main piece. He'd be a little bit less surprised if some of the defensive people that we've been talking about in the rumor mill were not part of the package. So, we talked yesterday, there was some talk about maybe Shea Theodore. That came mostly from Jesse Granger of The Athletic. So that's a situation where, I don't know, I'm not completely sold that that's really the right way to go. I mean, obviously he's a great defenseman, could really help the Sabres, but do they really want that, or would they prefer the younger defenseman of Nicholas Hague, right? So Krebs and Hague are certainly a couple of pieces they could build around. They could throw in a first-round pick, and like I said, they would have to move some money off the roster, but it doesn't necessarily have to go to Buffalo. It can go to a third party or another team. Like I mentioned before, there was rumors they might be willing to move Riley Smith. He's in the final year of his contract. Many feel that they're likely not going to be re-signing him based on their cap situation and direction that they're heading in. We had heard before that the Rangers and Gerard Gallant were very interested in Riley Smith should he be available. So there's that possibility too. Not to say that's a guarantee. I haven't really heard much on that front in a long time, but either way, he's a player that I think they'd be willing to part with. So either him or Theodore, if you look at the money side of it, with what they have available now, then that would allow them to get Eichel on the roster, have a surgery, go on to LTIR, and go from there. I mean, you get Alex Tuch's on LTIR right now as well, so they could get him back later, assuming he's not part of any package. And they also have some other prospects too. I know I've seen some people mention a guy like Brendan Brisson as a potential prospect who was, fairly high draft pick. I think he went 29th overall, I think it was in 2020. Brisson is a player that is having a real solid season in U.S. college hockey. But here's the thing, I don't think he would be involved with this, mainly because his dad is Pat Brisson, Jack Eichel's agent. And after everything Eichel's gone through in Buffalo, I just would have a hard time to imagine that he would allow his son to be traded to Buffalo. Now, of course, he doesn't have complete control over that, but I'm sure he would advocate against it. So, I don't know. It seems kind of odd at how his own son could possibly be in the trade that he's been lobbying to get for his client. But anyway, we'll have to wait and find out. He's certainly a solid prospect. I have no doubt Buffalo would have interest, and I just don't know how much Vegas is going to end up paying here for a price tag if this deal gets done. But as of right now, we don't have a deal, but we have, like I said, 3 different sources saying it's getting close. I know John Hoven mentioned he wondered if the Ducks would jump back in here, because obviously as teams learn that other teams are closing in and getting close on a deal, sometimes they try to jump back in last minute and kind of up the ante a little bit and change their offer. So doesn't mean for sure that a deal gets done to Vegas. Anaheim's probably one of the few other teams I think would maybe jump back in and try to do that at this point, though. But it's all indications right now look like Vegas is the main option, with a couple of their prospects, a first rounder, and like I said, at least one decent sized contract going out to kind of make sure that they can make everything work from a cap perspective, money-wise, etc. So we'll have to stay tuned to this file. I don't know if anything's going to go down tonight. We don't know if it's necessarily that close. Could it be over the weekend? It just makes it sound here with all these reports that it's getting close, but sometimes we've heard that before, and it drag on for an extra couple of days. Something could happen. It could fall apart. No guarantees by any means. So let's monitor the situation, and we'll report back when there's more news. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.